You know, there is a specific medical diagnosis, 2 words actually, that I think might just be one of the most frustrating things a human being can ever hear in a doctor's office.
Oh, I can guess.
Yeah, it's unexplained infertility.
It is absolutely maddening because what that really translates to is, well, it means we know something isn't working, but the standard checklist we use, it didn't find the problem.
Yeah.
So, good luck.
Right. It feels like a complete dead end. It feels like you're broken and nobody has the schematic to fix you. But today we are taking a deep dive into a stack of research and methodologies that suggests unexplained might just mean, we aren't looking at the whole picture.
Exactly.
We are diving into the Berkley method of integrative reproductive wellness.
Right. And this is centered on the work of Mike Berkley. He is a real heavyweight in this field. He's a licensed acupuncturist, a fellow of the American Board of Oriental Reproductive Medicine, and he's the founder of the Berkley Center in New York City.
Which is a very specialized clinic.
Very. And what makes this material so interesting, and frankly, so hopeful for a lot of people, is that he pushes back hard against the way we are usually taught to think about reproduction.
You mean like the high school biology version?
That's exactly it. The old, egg meets sperm, magic happens narrative.
Yeah.
It's always portrayed as this singular, localized event. Like it's just a matter of timing.
Right, get the timing right and boom.
But the core thesis of the Berkley method is that fertility is not an isolated event at all. It is an ecosystem problem. It is a systemic, whole-body event.
I really love that analogy, an ecosystem. So if the ecosystem is off, like if the soil is toxic or the weather is bad or the resources are low, it really doesn't matter if you have the seed.
Nothing is going to grow.
Nothing is going to grow. That makes total sense. And the mission for this deep dive is to unpack how integrative medicine, specifically combining advanced reproductive science with natural therapies like acupuncture and herbal medicine, actually goes about fixing that ecosystem.
Yeah, treating complex challenges.
Exactly. We're talking about everything from supporting IVF cycles to the really heavy, often unspoken topic of preventing miscarriage.
And I think we need to flag something right at the top before anyone tunes out thinking, well, that sounds great, but I don't live anywhere near New York City.
Oh, yes, absolutely. A huge chunk of this source material is actually dedicated to a remote protocol.
Right. It's the how-to for applying this exact expertise when you are 1,000 miles away.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly structured, and we will get to the logistics of that later because it's a really crucial piece of the puzzle for a lot of people.
It changes the game completely. So let's start with this whole body paradigm, because I think when people are struggling to conceive, the focus becomes so hyperfixated.
It does.
It's all about the ovaries, the uterus, the fallopian tubes. It becomes very mechanical.
It is mechanical, and frankly, it's reductive. The source material argues that fertility relies on a complex checklist that goes way beyond just the reproductive organs. It's not just about gametes. If you treat a woman like she is just a walking pair of ovaries, you are missing like 90% of the equation.
So what is on this checklist then? If we aren't just looking at egg count, what else matters?
Well, obviously balanced hormones, that's the baseline.
Right.
But then it goes much deeper. You need healthy, robust blood flow specifically to the uterus and ovaries. You need a regulated immune function, which is a huge one we'll talk about.
Yeah, the immune stuff is wild.
And you need low systemic inflammation.
And there was one that really caught my eye in the notes here. Strong mitochondrial function.
Yes. This is so often overlooked.
Now, I haven't thought about mitochondria since, 10th grade science class?
The powerhouse of the cell.
The powerhouse of the cell, exactly. Why is that headlined in a modern fertility protocol?
Well, think about what an egg and a sperm are actually trying to do. They're trying to create an entire human being from scratch. Reproduction is arguably the most energy-intensive process a human body can undertake.
It takes a lot of fuel.
A massive amount. Cells need all that energy to divide, to mature, to actually implant into the uterine wall.
So if your mitochondria are sluggish,
then the cellular fuel just isn't there. It's sort of like trying to run a marathon when you haven't eaten in 3 days. You might take a few steps, you might even start the race, but you're going to collapse before the finish line.
That makes perfect sense when you put it that way. But the terrifying part of this checklist is the consequence section. The source says if even one of these factors is compromised,
the whole system can fail.
Yes.
Just one factor.
That's wild.
This is exactly why unexplained infertility is such a tricky diagnosis. Your hormones might look totally fine on paper, but if your systemic inflammation is high, conception becomes really difficult.
Or it just doesn't happen.
Right. Or, and this is the part that is really heartbreaking, conception does happen,
Yeah.
but the pregnancy doesn't progress.
It's a chain reaction.
It really is. And that's why the Berkley Center's strategy is so aggressive about addressing all these elements simultaneously. You can't just pump a patient full of hormones if their inflammation is through the roof.
Yeah, you're revving the engine, but the car has flat tires.
Great way to put it. You have to fix the tires, fill the tank, and tune the engine all at the exact same time.
Okay, so let's get into the how, because this is where the skepticism usually creeps in for a lot of people. We're talking about acupuncture.
Oh, the skepticism is real.
I think a lot of people, even very open-minded ones, view acupuncture as, relaxation, or maybe a placebo.
They think it's woo-woo.
Exactly. It makes me feel calm, so it's nice, but it's not medicine. But the source material here is surprisingly technical about the mechanism of action. It's not talking about energy vibes, it's talking about the actual nervous system.
Right. It's physiology, plain and simple. The text describes acupuncture as a way to stimulate specific points that literally hack the nervous system, the vascular system, and the hormonal signaling. It's an input-output system.
You put a stimulus in.
You get a biological response out. It's science.
The source lists 5 specific benefits of this. I want to go through these one by one because they paint a really clear picture of what's happening underneath the skin. Number 1 is blood flow.
This is the foundation of everything. The source explicitly states that enhanced circulation is essential for 2 major things: nourishing the developing follicles, so getting better egg quality, and building the uterine lining.
Going back to the soil analogy.
Precisely. You need a thick, nutrient-dense triple-layer lining for an embryo to implant. That lining is made of blood. If you have poor perfusion, if the blood vessels are constricted, you are basically asking an embryo to set up camp in a desert.
So acupuncture effectively dilates those vessels.
It opens the floodgates. By targeting specific neural pathways, it signals the smooth muscle in the arterial walls to just relax. The femoral artery opens up, and suddenly you have oxygen, nutrients, and hormones actually flooding into the reproductive organs instead of just trickling in.
Which leads right into benefit number 2, hormone regulation.
Ah, the CEO and the factory floor dynamic.
I absolutely love this analogy from the text. Break it down for us.
Okay, so your ovaries don't make decisions. They are just the factory floor. They take their orders from the brain, specifically the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. That's the CEO.
Okay, so the brain is calling the shots.
Yeah, right. The CEO sends signals: follicle-stimulating hormone, luteinizing hormone. Acupuncture helps modulate that exact communication loop.
So if the signal between the brain and the ovaries is static-filled,
Then the factory gets confused. Ovulation becomes irregular, or the egg isn't recruited properly. The source explains that acupuncture clears that static. It helps balance estrogen and progesterone, so the orders from the brain are received clearly and executed perfectly by the ovaries.
Now, number 3 is the one that I think resonates with everyone living in the modern world, which is stress reduction. But the source frames this as a biological imperative, not just feeling chill.
This is fascinating evolutionary biology here. It talks about the shift from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system.
Sympathetic being the fight or flight mode.
Right. That's cortisol. That's adrenaline. Evolutionarily speaking, if you are in a high sympathetic state, your body genuinely thinks you are in danger, like you're running from a predator, or there's a famine, or you're fighting a war.
And the body is smart enough to know, hey, do not have a baby right now.
Exactly. It's a resource allocation issue. If you are fighting for your life, your body shuts down the reproductive factory to save energy for basic survival. It shunts blood away from the uterus and pushes it towards your muscles so you can run away.
Wow. So when we are stressed at work or stressed about not getting pregnant or just dealing with the daily chaos of life,
We are accidentally signaling to our biology that the environment is unsafe for a baby.
that is such a vicious cycle. You're stressed because you can't conceive, and the stress actually physically prevents you from conceiving.
It is a brutal loop. And the source argues that acupuncture forces the body into that parasympathetic rest and restore mode. It physically flips the switch. It tells your biology, hey, the war is over. It is safe. You have the resources. Proceed with reproduction.
So it's not just about relaxing on a table. It's sending a safety signal to the ovaries.
That's the absolute best way to put it. It's a biological green light.
Number 4 on the list is implantation support. This was interesting. It mentions decreasing uterine tension.
Think about a muscle spasm. If your calf muscle cramps, it's as hard as a rock, right?
Yet it hurts.
Well, the uterus is a muscle too.
Yeah.
If it is spastic or tense, which can happen without you even feeling it, by the way. It is not a welcoming environment for a very delicate embryo to burrow into. The embryo literally bounces off or fails to connect.
And acupuncture fixes that.
Acupuncture helps resolve that spasticity. It keeps the uterus calm and receptive.
And finally, number 5. And this is the heaviest one, but arguably the most important for the listeners Mike Berkley works with. Miscarriage reduction.
This brings the whole system together. The text notes that many early pregnancy losses, those really tough heartbreaks in the first trimester, are associated with things like inadequate progesterone, poor blood flow, or immune dysregulation.
Basically, the body rejecting the pregnancy.
Or just failing to sustain it. By stabilizing the hormones and the circulation during those critical first 12 weeks, the goal is to prevent the body from dropping the ball, so to speak. It's about maintenance, not just initiation.
So that's the acupuncture side. It's the physical manipulation of the body's signals. But the Berkley method pairs this with a second major pillar, which is customized herbal medicine.
And I cannot stress enough that the key word here is customized.
Right, because I think we've all done the Dr. Google thing. You read a forum, someone says take Vitex or drink this specific raspberry tea, and you run to the health food store and buy it all.
And the source strongly warns against that. It creates a very stark contrast between generic, over-the-counter supplements and true clinical herbal medicine.
How so? What's the actual danger in the generic stuff?
It comes down to a concept called constitution. This is a concept from integrative medicine that doesn't really exist in Western pharmaceuticals. The text explains that 2 patients could walk into the Berkley Center with the exact same diagnosis, let's say polycystic ovary syndrome or PCOS.
Okay. In Western medicine, they usually just get the same drug, right? Like metformin or Clomid.
Right. It's one size fits all. But in this integrative model, Mike Berkley looks at their baseline health, their constitution. One patient might run hot.
What does running hot look like medically?
It means they have a lot of inflammation. Maybe high blood pressure, they're easily agitated, they have a red face, they're thirsty all the time. But the other patient with the exact same PCOS diagnosis might be cold and deficient.
Meaning they're tired all the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tired, pale, poor digestion, freezing cold hands and feet.
Even though they both have the exact same disease label on their chart.
Yes. And if you give them the same generic herb from the internet, you might help one and completely hurt the other.
Wow.
If you give a heating herb to the patient who's already running hot, you're just adding fuel to the fire. You're going to make their inflammation worse.
That is a really important distinction. It's not about what herb is good for PCOS. It's about what herb is good for this specific woman who happens to have PCOS.
Correct. The herbal formula has to be tailored to the person, not the disease. And when you get that match right, the source lists some really incredible outcomes.
Yeah, let's look at those specific applications, because they cover some very stubborn conditions.
Reducing inflammation is a huge one, specifically for endometriosis.
Because endo is so painful.
And it's fundamentally an inflammatory disease. If you can cool that fire down with herbs, you drastically improve the environment for the egg and the embryo.
The text also mentions regulating cycles for those PCOS patients we just talked about.
And here is one that I think is the real frontier of fertility medicine. Calming overactive immune responses.
Okay, you have to explain that. That sounds almost like science fiction.
Well, think about what an embryo actually is. It contains DNA from the father, right?
Right.
So to the mother's body, that is technically foreign DNA, just like a virus or a bacteria.
Oh, wow. So the immune system attacks the embryo.
Sometimes, yes. If a woman's immune system is a little too vigilant, a little too revved up, it identifies the embryo as an invader and it attacks. This is very often a root cause of those unexplained repeated miscarriages.
So how do herbs fix an immune attack?
Certain herbal protocols described in the source can help modulate that response. Notice I said modulate, not suppress. They don't suppress the immune system like a strong drug would, which would leave you open to getting sick. They just calm it down enough to say to the body, hey, this embryo's a friend, let it stay.
That is fascinating.
Oh.
Now, there is another application for the herbs that leads us into a very specific and honestly often ignored section of this deep dive, the male factor.
Ah, yes, the forgotten 50%.
The source is very clear on this. Fertility is a dual equation. But I feel like the guy is almost always left out of the treatment room until the very bitter end.
It's a huge blind spot in reproductive medicine. We tend to focus 90% of the effort and the blame on the woman. But the Berkley method explicitly mentions using these exact same therapies, acupuncture and herbs, to improve sperm count, motility, and morphology.
Morphology is the shape of the sperm.
Right.
Yeah.
Is the swimmer shaped correctly to actually penetrate the egg?
Yeah.
But it goes way beyond just fertilization. The source links sperm quality directly to recurrent pregnancy loss.
Wait, hold on. So a miscarriage might be caused by the sperm quality. Because I think most people assume that once the egg is fertilized, the guy's job is completely done.
That is a massive misconception. If the sperm has fragmented DNA, if the genetic payload it delivered is damaged, the embryo might start to grow initially, but eventually it hits a wall. The blueprint is bad. The genetic instructions are literally missing pages.
Usually the pregnancy just fails.
Yes. The source reframes miscarriage not just as bad luck or a woman's issue, but very often as having identifiable, treatable causes on both sides of the equation. Improving the sperm quality essentially improves the structural integrity of the embryo.
That reframing is really powerful. It totally changes the goalpost. The text says the goal isn't just getting a positive pregnancy test.
No, the exact phrase used is the healthy continuation of pregnancy. A positive test is just the first hurdle. The Berkley method is playing the long game here. It's about supporting the body through fertilization, then implantation, and then those vulnerable first few weeks to actually get to a live birth.
Okay, I want to pivot to the logistics. Because we've painted this picture of a very high-touch, very customized ecosystem overhaul. We have acupuncture rewiring the nervous system, custom herbs balancing the chemistry, diet changes. But Mike Berkley is in Manhattan.
Right, and usually that is the ultimate barrier. You find the one expert who resonates with you, but they are geographically impossible to reach.
But the source outlines a remote protocol. And I want to get into the weeds of this because it's not just a quick Zoom call and a good luck wave.
It is remarkably structured. The text says it starts with a very comprehensive phone consultation. Mike Berkley personally reviews the full medical history, analyzes all the lab work, looks at basal body temperature and cycle patterns, and if the patient's already going through IVF or IUI with a local doctor, he evaluates those protocols too.
So he's acting almost like a secondary master detective on the case.
Exactly. He's looking for those subtle inflammatory markers or those constitution issues, like the hot versus cold we talked about, that the standard reproductive endocrinologist just might not be trained to focus on.
Okay, so he figures out the master strategy. What are the actual deliverables? What does the patient receive in the mail?
Well, the herbs are easy. He creates the custom formula and ships the prescription directly to you. He also sends fertility-focused meal plans and targeted supplement recommendations. But the acupuncture piece is what I found really innovative.
Yeah, how do you do remote acupuncture? You definitely don't stick the needles in yourself, right?
No, definitely not. Please don't do that at home. The source says he creates a highly detailed acupuncture protocol and then hands it off to the patient's local acupuncturist.
Oh, that is so cool. So you find someone in your own town. Maybe they're just a generalist. Maybe they mostly treat back pain or migraines. And Mike Berkley tells them, for this specific patient, put the needles here, here, and here.
Yes, it perfectly bridges the gap between expert strategy and local execution. It creates a team. You get the brain of the specialist who's been doing this for over 20 years, but the actual physical treatment happens down the street from your house.
It effectively removes geography as a limiting factor.
And that's crucial because consistency is key with acupuncture. You can't fly to New York twice a week for months. It's way too expensive and too stressful. And remember, the whole point is we are trying to reduce stress. You need the treatment locally, but you need the strategy to be flawless.
It really reinforces that idea of a team approach. You have your local reproductive doctor doing the IVF, you have Mike Berkley managing the overarching ecosystem and the herbs, and you have your local practitioner doing the body work.
It's wrapping the patient in a lot of comprehensive support. And considering how isolating fertility struggles can be, I mean, the text mentions patients often coming in after months or even years of failure. That structure is probably just as medicinal as the herbs themselves.
Absolutely. Just knowing there is a solid plan, knowing someone is looking at the whole board, not just one isolated piece.
A plan that actually covers all the bases.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. We started with the idea that fertility is incredibly complex.
It's an ecosystem. If there is one major thing you take away from this source material, it's that you cannot treat the reproductive system in isolation. You have to look at the blood flow, the immune function, the systemic inflammation, the stress levels, and the energy production at a cellular level.
And the Berkeley method uses a combination of targeted acupuncture to regulate the nervous system signals and blood flow, and customized herbs to balance the internal chemistry.
All aimed at that ultimate goal of not just conception, but a healthy live birth, and doing it in a way that is accessible regardless of where you actually live.
It's a very empowering perspective. Instead of feeling like your body is broken and everything is unexplained, it's more like the ecosystem just needs some careful restoration.
Restoration and balance. It's about removing the obstacles, the cortisol, the inflammation, the stagnation, so the body can do what it evolved to do naturally.
Now, for anyone listening who is in the thick of this right now, whether you are prepping for an IVF cycle, dealing with something stubborn like PCOS or endometriosis, or you've experienced the heartbreak of loss, the source makes it very clear that expert guidance is available.
Yes, the Berkley Center emphasizes that you don't have to navigate this maze alone. They have the mechanism in place to help you remotely.
So if you want to explore this further, the source points you directly to their website, which is berkleycenter.com. They offer those comprehensive phone consultations we talked about. It seems like a very logical next step if you feel like you've hit a brick wall with the standard treatments.
It adds another crucial layer of care that addresses the why and not just the what.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a thought. We talked a lot about that shift from fight or flight to rest and restore. We talked about how the body actively prioritizes survival over reproduction when stress is high.
It's a fundamental biological switch. You really can't override it with willpower.
It makes me wonder, if our bodies need to be in a calm, parasympathetic state to conceive, what does that tell us about the way we live our modern lives? We are constantly buzzed, notifications going off all day, working late, stress levels just through the roof.
It suggests a profound mismatch between our evolutionary biology, which thinks chronic stress means a literal tiger is chasing us, and our modern environment, where the stress is just an unread email or a looming deadline.
Exactly. Maybe the fertility challenges so many people face aren't just isolated medical issues, but a massive signal from our biology that we are living at a pace we simply weren't designed for.
It's a signal to slow down. The body is asking for safety.
Something to think about as you go about your day. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
Always a pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next deep dive.